So yeah, we are sitting here by the water in Portland, Oregon, and I have the chance to ask Joker a couple questions. So I usually start out with the same question, but tell us. Well, first off, tell us when you got started.
I got started in the spring summer of 1985.
Okay. And how did you get into it?
I was really into skateboarding, and I just recall looking at the back of a Thrasher magazine. There was an ad, I believe it was Lance Mountain, holding a skateboard, and it said Palo Peralta and like paint pen or paint markers or something on the grip tape, and I was like, oh, that's cool, I should do something like that. And so I started doing it on my skateboard, and then other people wanted me to do it on theirs, and then through a friend of a friend, someone's like, oh, you should meet this guy, he does that too, and then it just kind of turned into graffiti.
So were you a Pal Peralta fan or a Vision fan? Or?
I was secretly a Vision fan, but I was definitely a Bones Brigade guy.
Why were you secretly a Vision fan?
Because I liked they were a little bit more edgy, and I liked their graphics and stuff like that better.
So what was your favorite? I mean, is there a particular board that you remember?
My favorite board was the Mark Gator board with the crazy, I
don't know what you call that.
I don't either.
Okay.
Hypnotic design, I guess, is what it was.
Okay, cool. So, were you in any skate teams or anything?
No, it was just totally for fun, mostly ramps and stuff.
Cool. So, when did you, when did that actually transition into graffiti? When did the name Joker come about?
So, like I was saying, a friend of a friend introduced me to someone who was actually doing graffiti on walls and stuff, and he was going by the name Joker at the time. He had moved to where we were living, which was a suburb of D.C. called Reston, and he was from New York, and so he saw that I really liked doing graffiti and I wanted to learn a lot, so he kind of took me under his wing and showed me the ropes, showed me like how to do letters, and showed me subway art, spray can art, and he had a lot of his own photos from where he had lived. So that was pretty much the springboard right there.
So you were writing Joker?
I wasn't writing Joker at all. I was just drawing people's names and just having fun. I didn't really even have a name. I didn't know what a tag was at the time or anything. I just was just having fun.
So then this guy kind of passed down his name to you and then retired? Or?
Well, yeah, after a while. I mean, he gave me my first tag, which was Dez. And then, like, once he showed me the books, he's like, yeah, maybe you should change your name. You know, this guy already has that name. Which probably wasn't really that big a deal. I mean, not like some kid from Reston is some suburban, of D.C. is going to take over the name Dez. But eventually I changed my name to something else, which I don't even remember what that name was now. I think Red 5 is what I changed my name to. But then, down the road, he changed his name to something else. And since everything he had showed me, and like all his black books that I'd always used for inspiration said Joker, and I was just constantly learning those letters anyway.
Oh, cool.
He just kind of, I can't remember if he handed it down or if I just took it.
And you stuck with it all that time? When was that? What year was that?
I would say that was 89 or 90, something like that. It was right before I went to art school in Fort Lauderdale, so yeah, I think that was 89.
So you were into art before all this, I imagine?
Yeah.
And just to draw skulls and snakes?
Lots of skulls, yeah. Lots of stupid stuff like that. Fun, stupid stuff.
Cool. So, do you still skate?
Every once in a while. It's like maybe once or twice a year. I mean, living in Portland, there's so many venues that, why not kind of thing. But I got really into fixed gear bikes, I'd say in the mid to late 90s, and then that turned into geared bikes, which turned into racing, and so now racing bikes is kind of my passion.
Oh, that's cool.
Kind of took over graffiti as well, but that's all right.
Nice. So, Okay, so tell us about art school. Tell us about Fort Lauderdale.
Going to school in Fort Lauderdale is kind of stupid, especially when your school is 1 block from the beach. To expect people to spend 8 hours a day inside when the beach is, and especially, I mean, every classroom had these floor-to-ceiling windows. You're just constantly looking outside at the ocean. So I didn't get a whole lot done at school in Fort Lauderdale. And so I went for a year in Fort Lauderdale, and then I transferred to school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and got a lot more done there. But got to the point where I couldn't afford it anymore, so I dropped out.
But you stuck around in Pennsylvania?
I stuck around in Pittsburgh for about a year and a half, before I went back to D.C.
Okay, cool. So, what was happening in D.C. at the time, as far as graffiti goes?
When I went back?
Yeah. Or even in the beginning. I mean, are there other writers that, when you were starting out, that you sort of...
When I was starting out, there weren't very many writers at all in D.C. I'd say there was, you could count them on one hand kind of thing. Every once in a while, there would be people from Baltimore or from Philadelphia or even New York that would come down and catch the occasional tag here and there. Excuse me. Or do some hollows or a stamp here and there. But as far as local writers, there was very few. And then when I went to Pittsburgh, or when I came back from Pittsburgh, there was at least about probably like 10 or more writers. And oddly enough, somebody I met in Pittsburgh knew one of the writers in D.C. and introduced me to them. And
who was that?
Mesk.
Okay.
Mesk 1. And yeah, he and I got along great and started MCA together, Murder Capital Art, because D.C. was the murder capital at the time.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think it was like the 3rd year in a row or something. So nothing to be proud of, but yeah. So we started Murder Capital Art, and at the time it was just me, Mesk, and this kid Wake. But there was other people in the city that were writing as well, like Cycle was writing, SMK, Da1 was writing, and then there was just like a ton of like hardcore kids that they weren't really serious, but they were still catching tags here and there, just for shits and giggles kind of thing.
So these other kids, I mean, besides the hardcore kids, did they come in or did they get into graffiti through the same thing, through skateboarding?
I'm pretty sure Mesh got into it through skateboarding. Wake, I still to this day don't know how he got into it. I would assume Cycle got into it through skateboarding, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, and the other kids probably just through music, hip-hop.
Cool. So, what happened after that? What happened after you went back to D.C.?
I stayed in the D.C. area for a little while. I don't remember how many years I was there after that. And then, to make a really, really long story short, my parents got back together and they decided to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I wasn't really prepared to live on my own at the time, so I had to go with them, which really sucked. And so yeah, I stayed in Tulsa for like 6 or 7 months, just pulling my hair. But the fun thing is like I didn't know anybody in Tulsa. I didn't do anything in Tulsa, so every night I would go out and just kind of bomb here and there. And that was really, really fun, because nobody was doing that really in Tulsa.
Were there trains?
There were some trains there, but at the time, freights weren't really that big.
Yeah.
I had done a few, but it wasn't really like something I thought about like you would think about now, It was mostly just highway walls and stuff in the city. There were a few writers in Tulsa, but I didn't know any of them when I was living there. I didn't meet them until after I moved away and then came back. It was kind of weird.